Day 1, you're annoyed. Day 3, you're worried. Day 6, you're starting to understand why every ancient culture on Earth invented a god specifically to be angry at the sky. Imagine this. You live in a cave 30,000 years ago. It starts raining on a Monday. By Wednesday, the ground outside has turned into a swamp that swallows your feet up to the ankle. By Friday, the small stream near your shelter has become a brown, churning river, eating away at the bank 10 feet from where you sleep. And it is still raining. No radar, no forecast, no idea if this ends tomorrow or in 3 more weeks. Just the sound of water hammering stone, hour after hour, day after day, with absolutely no way to know when it stops. This is the story of what ancient humans actually did when the sky refused to cooperate for a week straight. And the answer is stranger, smarter, and considerably more disturbing than you'd expect. Let's start with the part nobody thinks about. Rain wasn't just inconvenient for early humans. It was an active, ongoing threat to almost everything keeping them alive. Your fire, your food, your shelter, your health. All of it was under direct assault the second the rain didn't stop. And the first casualty was almost always food. Hunting in heavy rain is close to impossible. Scent trails wash away. Visibility drops. Prey animals go quiet and hide, which means the humans trying to track them are moving blind through slick, unstable terrain, one wrong step from a broken ankle that, out there, was often a death sentence. So within a day or two of sustained rain, most hunting simply stopped, which meant groups had to survive on whatever they'd already stored. And that's where things got tense fast. Archaeologists studying ancient campsites have found something consistent across multiple regions and time periods. Storage pits, dug into cave floors and lined with grass or bark, built specifically to hold surplus food during exactly these situations. Dried meat, nuts, tubers, anything that wouldn't spoil quickly, stockpiled in advance because someone, somewhere, had already learned the hard way that the rain could come and simply not stop. This wasn't guesswork. This was risk management passed down through generations of people who had personally watched their group go hungry during a multi-day storm and decided never again. But storage only bought time. It didn't solve the real problem, which was that an entire group of people, sometimes 20 or 30 individuals, had to exist together in a confined, damp space for days on end, without going insane or killing each other. And this is where the psychology gets genuinely fascinating. Think about being trapped in a small apartment with 30 relatives for a week, with no phones, no lights, and constant tension about food running low. That's roughly the situation. And the archaeological and anthropological evidence suggests ancient humans developed something close to an unwritten social protocol specifically for these periods. Researchers studying modern hunter-gatherer groups, who live in conditions remarkably similar to our ancient ancestors, have observed that prolonged confinement triggers a noticeable shift in group behavior. Aggression gets suppressed. Sharing increases. Storytelling and ritual activity spike dramatically. It's almost like a built-in social pressure valve, a set of behaviors that exist specifically to stop small irritations from exploding into violence when there's nowhere to walk away to. And here's the wild part. Some anthropologists believe this pressure valve, this instinct to soften conflict and lean into group bonding during forced closeness, may be one of the deep evolutionary roots of human cooperation itself. In other words, the rain didn't just test human survival skills, it may have actively shaped human personality. Now let's talk about the fire, because keeping it alive during a week of rain was arguably the single most stressful ongoing task in the entire camp. A fire that's been burning for months, sometimes maintained continuously across generations because relighting one from nothing was genuinely difficult, suddenly becomes vulnerable the moment water starts finding its way into the shelter. Smoke behaves differently in humid air. It lingers, thickens, and can build up dangerously in an enclosed cave if ventilation gets blocked by driving rain outside the entrance. There's actual archaeological evidence of ancient people dying from smoke inhalation in poorly ventilated shelters during exactly these prolonged storm periods, which tells you how seriously they had to manage airflow, moisture, and fuel simultaneously, for days, without a single mistake. Someone was almost certainly assigned to fire duty around the clock, not because it was glamorous, but because the alternative was catastrophic. No fire meant no warmth, no cooked food, no protection from nocturnal predators drawn toward shelter during storms, and no light in a pitch-black cave. Losing the fire during a week of rain wasn't an inconvenience. It could be the event that ended the group. And speaking of predators, here's something genuinely unsettling. Heavy sustained rain didn't just affect humans. It affected every animal in the region, and it pushed a lot of them toward the exact same shelters humans were using. Caves, rock overhangs, anywhere dry. Paleontologists have found overlapping human and large predator remains in cave layers dated to periods of known heavy rainfall, evidence that during extended storms, humans and dangerous animals were sometimes forced into uncomfortably close proximity, competing for the same dry real estate. Which means a full week of rain wasn't just about staying warm and fed, it was about actively defending your shelter, sometimes literally, from something that also desperately wanted to get out of the weather. So with hunting paused, storage rationed carefully, and fire duty running around the clock, what did people actually do with the remaining hours? Because a week is a long time to sit and stare at rain. The answer, based on what's been dug up in caves worldwide, is that this downtime became some of the most productive time in the entire prehistoric calendar. Stone tool workshops packed with flaking debris have been found concentrated in specific spots inside caves, exactly where someone would sit near the fire for hours, repeatedly striking stone with total focus. Bone needles, requiring extraordinary patience and fine motor control to carve and drill, appear disproportionately in layers associated with extended shelter occupation. Rope-making tools, string fragments, twisted plant fiber, the kind of slow, repetitive craft nobody has time for when they're out hunting every day, shows up again and again in these same rainy season contexts. And then there's the art. Some of the most stunning cave paintings ever discovered are located deep inside cave systems, sometimes requiring a crawl through narrow passages just to reach them. Nobody paints intricate animals hundreds of meters underground by torchlight when the weather's perfect and there's hunting to do. You do that specifically when you cannot go outside and have already run out of practical tasks. The timing lines up too consistently to be coincidence. Some researchers now believe that extended bad weather periods may have been one of the primary drivers behind the explosion of prehistoric art and craftsmanship, essentially forcing human creativity into existence through sheer boredom and confinement. But maybe the most important thing that happened during these weeks wasn't physical at all. It was verbal. With nothing else to do, groups talked. And not just casual chatter. Anthropological studies of modern hunter-gatherer communities have found that nighttime, confined, fireside conversation looks fundamentally different from daytime talk. During the day, conversation tends to be practical, logistics, complaints, coordination. But during prolonged indoor periods, storytelling takes over almost entirely, sometimes accounting for the vast majority of all conversation. Myths, survival knowledge, warnings about dangerous plants, memories of past disasters, all of it gets passed down specifically during these long enforced pauses. Which means the week of rain that felt like dead time to the people living through it was often when the actual transfer of critical, life-saving knowledge happened. The kid learning which berries are poisonous wasn't learning it on a sunny hunting trip. He was learning it huddled by a fire during hour 80 of a storm that wouldn't quit, listening to an elder repeat a story he'd probably heard a dozen times before, because repetition is how oral history survives for tens of thousands of years without a single written word. And here's the twist that makes this whole story even stranger. Extended rain wasn't purely a disaster. Once it finally stopped, it left behind conditions that were, in some ways, better than before. Soft ground held perfect, deep animal tracks, making the first hunt after a storm often the most successful one of the entire season. Rock depressions filled with clean drinking water. Certain edible mushrooms and plants exploded in growth almost overnight, so the groups that survived the week weren't just the ones who endured it. They were the ones who understood that the days right after the rain stopped were a narrow, valuable window, and they had to be ready, rested, tools sharpened, ropes made, the moment the sky finally cleared. So what did ancient humans actually do when it rained all week? They rationed. They defended their fire like their lives depended on it, because they did. They built tools with a level of patience most modern humans have completely lost. They painted animals in total darkness because there was nothing left to do but create something. And they talked endlessly, passing down the exact knowledge that would let their children survive the next storm and the one after that. Being trapped inside for a week wasn't empty time to them. It might have been some of the most important time humans ever spent, quietly building the tools, the bonds, and the stories that eventually built everything else.